Yeah. Makes sense because you're so pure, you know. Only one in a million. Page 13.
There it is. All I need is that.
Right.
Let's start. Let's just do it.
Let's just do it.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhan Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhan Hari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Mr. Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Ashtotartha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Ashtotartha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Prabhupada, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, thank you, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as irrevocable fact. Can't be turned back, can't be ended. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
On this 9th day of August 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 3 entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service, text number 13. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya Sukasya Cha Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. It's a tongue twister. Maybe you'll get it the third time. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. Santosh, Prabhu. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. Dharmaraj. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. Ryan. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pungsam Mato Nikshe Yasayame Atyanto Padatir Yatra Dukkasya cha sukasya cha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. The personality of Godhead said. Yogaha. The yoga system. Adhyatmikaha. Relating to the soul. Pungsam. Of living entities. Mataha. Is approved. Nikshe Yasaya. For the ultimate benefit. Me, by me. Atyanta, complete. Upadatihi, detachment. Yatra, where. Dukkasya, from distress. Cha, and. Sukasya, from happiness. Cha, and. Translation. The personality of God had answered. So his mother asked all these questions, appealed for relief, and he's answering. The yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Purport. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness. But as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also distress, material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also a pleasure. But for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga, as taught in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, is bhakti yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of the material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental. But the preliminary introduction is given here. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, as is the case throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, the exalted speaker is wasting no time in defining the ultimate yoga process and the answer to Devahuti's plea. She was taking the role of a disciple, and she was pleading that, if you recall, that my senses are giving me so much trouble because of their attachment to the objects of the senses, and therefore I'm in misery. But you are my eye, my transcendental eye, who can give me vision about what I can do to mitigate this. You are the axe that cut down the tree of birth and death, like that. She's appreciating the glories of her exalted son, Lord Kapila Dev. So, now, the fact that he defines yoga in this way is very important, because we approach these things in ignorance. We don't know, so we're kind of looking for knowledge. And there's so many people out there to tell us, no, yoga means this, yoga means that, yoga means this. There's a popular view of yoga. I'm sure if you look in the dictionary, probably the first definition is hatha yoga, gymnastic yoga, in English dictionary. But here, the highest yoga system, we want the highest, we want the best. We don't want some yoga system that's going to give us some temporary siddhis, or get us to the heavenly planets, or even make us healthy. We can do that on our own for a few minutes a day in order to maintain the body as a vehicle for serving Krishna. But certainly we shouldn't think that that's the goal of yoga. So here he defines it. First thing is, it relates to the soul, not the body. Adhyatmika pungsang, of the living entities. The spirit is not just related to the mind, the intelligence, or the body, but it's related to the spirit. That's what it's aimed at. And nikshayasaya. This word comes up again and again, sometimes just as shreya, but in the context that it means the ultimate good. Famously, Prabhupada would quote this verse, Labdvasu durlamamidham bahusambhavante manushyam artadham anityam apiya dhira turnam yateta napateta anumitya yavat nikshayasaya vishayakala sarvataksat. Notice the same word is there. So this verse is really a call to the living entities to appreciate the great value of human life. There's so many calls like that. Uttistata jagvata prapa varana bodhata. This is in the Upanishads. Get up, wake up. Uttistata jagvata. Get up and wake up. Jagvata. Prapya varana bodhata. Understand the great boon you have attained in the human form of life. So this verse goes on, it's been labdvasu durlabham idam bahu sambhavante manusham. Manusha means a human form. You can recognize it. You don't have to be a Sanskritist to understand that word. You have attained it after many, many births in other forms. Bahu sambhavante means many births. You've attained manusham. And what's the great value of the human form? Who can guess? Zach? No, but what can you use it for? Yeah, to artadam. Because the human form alone gives the ultimate value. This word artha is very important. We should understand it. It appears in different contexts. The well-known dharma, artha, kama, moksha. In that context, what does that artha mean, Damodar Kumar Prabhu? I'm sorry? No, not in that context. The economic development, money. So artha means something of value. So you have to see what the context is. And in the context of it, artadam, it means the ultimate goal of life, the ultimate valuable thing, that only in the human form of life. In other forms of life, the dogs and the cats are also looking for something of value, that they value. Food, sex, right? For many people, those are the most valuable things that they can think of. In this age of Kali, they said, if you can fill your belly up, you figure yourself, I'm successful. I have had a successful day. It's very much animalistic. Because we're carrying around these bodies, and they have demands too. But if your entire sense of value is according to what pleases the body, something that pleases the eyes, the tongue, the touch, and the sex organs, that's total animal life. So, that's not the kind of artha he's speaking of here. He's speaking of what Prahlad says is sva-artha, otherwise known as svarta. Natevadu svarta gatim hi vishnam. The materialists don't know that their ultimate goal of life is Vishnu. And so they're absorbed in external arthas. Durashaya bahirarthamanina. The mind is absorbed in the impossible to get artha of happiness in the material world. Okay, we don't know what happiness is, but we know what sense gratification is. So we'll go for a series of that. But that's sure to bring misery. What does Krishna say, 5th chapter? Yehi sangsparja bhoga dukkha yonayevate. Every one of your sense gratifications, gross and subtle, has its corresponding misery. And oftentimes the misery is a lot more intense and long-lasting than the pleasure. Right? There's a great opioid crisis. Right? People are trying to, mitigate the pain of this world, getting addicted. So there's some pleasure there, but the result can be death. Or at very least, imprisonment and bondage to this substance. So that's true with so many drugs. Drinking, you go out for a good time, and we're gonna have a good time. Get a little drunk, come on. And if you're not careful, you become an alcoholic. Then it's just misery. We had one guy died here. One of our former devotees became an alcoholic and on the street, and he died from alcohol poisoning. So where's the pleasure? A little pleasure from drinking turns into a great nightmare. Those are extreme examples, but it's true of every pleasure. At the very least, this material pleasure keeps you bound in the material world. Because if that's all you know for your happiness, then you'll have different varieties of pleasure in these days it's being presented to you in so many ways. And that's your focus, Then what? You're sure to come back again. Birth, old age, disease, and death. This is what Rishabdev teaches. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya priteya pranoti. Certainly they are mad whose only focus is sense gratification, indriya priti. Because they have to perform vikarma. If that's your focus, forget about Vedic rules, regulations, or anything. And that's sure to produce another material body, which is sure to produce suffering. So, nikshayasat, so what is this verse goes on? Having attained the human form of life, after many, many births, and this human form, which can give the ultimate good, which is liberation from birth and death, is preliminary good, but which is temporary, like all other forms, one should quickly, without delay, turnam means quickly, without delay, turnam yateta, strive for nikshayasa, the ultimate good. As long as the body is not threatened by death and is about to, expire. That's in there too. Because in all the other forms of life, we've enjoyed these different forms of sense gratification. We've already done it. We've just forgotten. This is Maya's trick. So here, he defines the ultimate yoga is related to the soul and is involved with producing the ultimate good. And then he says, atyanta upadati, complete detachment. Part of the definition is the yoga that produces complete detachment from this material world and from any disturbance caused by the so-called dukkha and sukha. In other words, one becomes completely transcendental to the vicissitudes of this world, which is like the first verse of Krishna's instruction, matra sparshasta konteya, shitoshna sukha dukkha. Who can complete it? You know this one. Agamai payam. Damara Kumar. Matra sparshas? No? We got to learn these Gita verses. Go ahead, Balaram. What? What does it mean?
It means the duality of happiness and stress, cold and heat, so on. It comes and goes like the summer, the winter season, and don't tolerate it.
Yeah, and it's due to, the first line, the touch of the senses with the sense objects. So, and then the next verse says, if you want liberation, you must come to the point of atyanto paratir dukkha yam hinavyadiyante te purusham purushashaba samadukka sukham dhiram somitat kapati. This word dhira comes up in the previous verse, having to do with death. We're all passing through this life, right? Boyhood and adolescence and youth and middle age and so forth. And then there comes the old age and death. And one who is dhira, who is sober-minded, realize he's not disturbed by any of this. It's just the outward change. He knows the soul is not disturbed. So he says, Yamina, one who is truly undisturbed by the dualities of this world, sukha and dukkha, that person alone is eligible for liberation. So right there at the beginning of the Gita, he's saying that one must come to that point, and the only way to come to the point is through yoga. And the only practical yoga, as Prabhu describes, is in this age, is bhakti yoga, the best yoga. Practical for us. That's why none of us are great yogis, tapasvis, ascetics, and yet we're practicing bhakti yoga. Trying anyway. So that's the definition here. That's the highest yoga. Now Prabhupada describes, again, he points out something that's very obvious, if you think about it, that every so-called happiness or pleasure in this world has its attendant unhappiness. We try to deny that. We want to come to the point of only happiness and no distress. But it's not possible in the material world. It's not built that way. He gives the example of the cow. You say, well, we don't have to keep a cow. We can drink milk without a cow. Yeah, but you have to work to get the money. That's unhappiness. That's a dukkha side. So the yoga system is meant to end all material happiness and material distress and replace it with unadulterated spiritual happiness. That's our birthright. That's who we really are. And our struggle in this world to get flickering happiness is just a reflection. In other words, we're trying to get that Satchidananda feeling from the material world, but it's not available. And so until we wake up and approach the right source of knowledge about how to act in this world for our ultimate good, which is a total mystery. We can't figure it out on our own. We're trapped here. This is the lesson throughout our books, whether it's Arjuna approaching Krishna as a guru, Sanatana Goswami approaching Lord Chaitanya, Chitraketu approaching Narada Muni, Dhruva approaching Narada Muni. They're in trouble. There's trouble and distress. And they understand that the only way out of the distress is through the instruction of someone who is beyond all material distress. We're just reading in the evening class, now we've come to this wonderful verse, Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Now this is a seminal verse, meaning that it is foundational to our whole philosophy. Krishna is declaring there that this suffering due to the gunas, right, is the three modes of material nature that are covering our knowledge and inducing us to enjoy, try to enjoy, different grades of happiness, whether it's goodness, passion, or ignorance. So those are like ropes, they're keeping us completely bound up. And because they produce illusion, he says in the previous verse, Tribhya gunamaya bhavar ebik sarvam idam jagat mohitam nabijanati mam. These three modes of nature cover the living entity and bewilder him and completely hide me, Krishna says. So people are just dealing with what they know, which is the material world. But that just produces more and more bondage. So what's the way out? Daiviyesha gunamahi mamamaya. This energy is divine because it's connected to me. We may call it material, but ultimately everything is divine because it's connected to Krishna. But from our point of view, an illusion, we call the material world material, lower energy. That's valid. So he says, Duratyaya, it's impossible to cross over on your own. Because it's empowered by me. Daiviyesha gunamayi mamamaya, that it's my maya. So the only way out of it is to approach the person who owns it and controls it, namely himself. So he says, Mam evayepa padyante maya me tang talantite. Those who surrender unto me easily cross beyond it. Why? Because the material energy is ultimately a person, and she's a servant of Krishna. And if we surrender to Krishna, and we worship Krishna, and we focus on Krishna, and we pray to Krishna, then he responds by proportionately releasing us from the bondage of material energy. And in the higher state, you can, and Kapila Dev will describe this in a few verses, because we're going to be entering into the well-known, famous Sadhu Sangashtaka soon. And he describes there how the easiest yoga system is simply associating with sadhus and hearing from them. And becoming affectionate to them and surrendering to them. So one of the verses there describes what the sadhus do and what you can do also. Madashriya katam rishta shunvanti katayanti cha tapanti vividastapa naitan mankata chetasa. He says there that they're hearing and chanting the sweet vibrations about me. Kapila Dev is identifying with Krishna. He's Krishna. Madashriya, it's interesting. These kata, these talks, have taken shelter of me. In other words, they relate to me. There's an idiom there. Kata mrishta, very wonderful, pleasing. Shunvanti katayanti. They hear and then they repeat. The repeating is also important. Hearing, repeating. The hearing is confirmed by the chanting. And what's the result? Well, the result is ultimately love of God. But the preliminary result, tapanti vividastapa naitan mankata chetas. The minds are on me, they're absorbed in me, and so they do not suffer as much from the material miseries. They become transcendental to that. So that's an important preliminary goal. One should try to be tolerant. We talked about that. Matar sparshas tukonteya. Okay. And so that's his introductory verse, and he will go on to describe it. Any discussion on this verse, we can go on to the next one. Why not? Yes, Bhagavan?
You mentioned like the opiate crisis.
Yeah, opioid. Opioid is called, because there's all varieties of things derived, but the same effect.
So is it like, are people taking pills, or are people...
What happened? Well, what I read about it, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of people in physical pain, due to so many things, And so to relieve that pain, they go to the doctor, and the doctor prescribes some opioid, some derivative. There are really powerful ones like fentanyl, which is not really used. It's only supposed to be used in medical cases because it's much more powerful than heroin. But it gets out. The doctors are corrupt, or somebody synthesizes it, so that gets out, and that overdose that, and you're dead. But mostly there's like things like OxyContin, or oxytocin. There's different ones. And Okay, so people take that, but it turns out that's quite expensive. And so they find now that the heroin is cheaper than the pills. They get addicted, unwittingly they get addicted. I remember there was a devotee, none of you were here at the time, go way back to 1989. So I met this devotee in Miami in the early 80s. He'd been to Vietnam. It was a tragic case. He had met the devotees before he was going into the army. They pleaded with him not to go, but he was committed to go and so forth, so he went. And, oh God, what a story. So he gets captured by the North Vietnamese army. He and his buddy. Maybe more of them, but he told me. So his buddy was injured, so he's carrying his buddy with him. And they're both in chains and being taken to the north. Once they go to the north, you never hear them from again. They go to some prison camp in North Vietnam. So along the way, the procession, you want to call it that, of captured prisoners, got strung out a little bit. So he took the advantage and with one elbow, he knocked out the guy, the North Vietnamese guy who was taking them, killed him, and escaped. So now he's escaped. He's still carrying his guy. He was strong. He was still carrying his buddy, So they're running, going, I don't know how many miles, and they hear there's a firefight going on. There's weapons being fired everywhere. So they hide behind a bush and everything. They see, there's the Americans, and there's the Vietnamese or the Viet Cong or something. So there's a little lull, and they try to get the attention of the Americans, so they'll give them some cover. They can escape and actually get back into the camp. So he raises his arms and shows, and then all someone saw was they didn't see properly, and they shot at him. They killed his friend and knocked off one arm of his. So now he's totally injured, and then they came and they saw so he didn't die, obviously, but he was severely injured. So they take him to Hawaii, which is, I guess, a standard hospital for recovering soldiers at that time. And he's in there, and in order to ease the pain, they put him on drugs. What's it? The derivative of opium. I forget what it's called. Morphine. Thank you. So he's on the morphine and gradually gets healed, but after a few months, he's now addicted to morphine. So he was in there a whole year to get free from the morphine addiction. And eventually he came he got initiated. He joined in Miami, he joined in Hawaii. Prabhupada visited there quite often. So his right arm is gone, so he's sitting there with all the devotees chanting with his left hand. And Prabhupada notices that. He didn't notice the arm. So he said, what are you chanting with your left hand? So he showed him his stump. Prabhupada, okay. So Prabhupada gives him his own beads. Which he didn't chant, he chanted a little, but he basically put them on the wall, Anyway, eventually he came, and he had some brain damage. It was tragic, really. He's in like a home in Alachua area, So that's happening all over the country. People are, taking these opioids in order to relieve the pain, getting addicted, and getting into heroin and all this kind of thing. So that's what's going on. And there's a huge number. And of course, there's so many ODs, and then people are dying, and it's said to be a health crisis in America. This is one more thing that we can be thankful that we're not involved in. You going to say something?
Yeah, I know this devotee Ramraj. You know him in Denver?
No, I don't.
He's a Prabhupada disciple. He was also injured in Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
And he has to take opiates every day. He told me that he wakes up at 3 a.m., pops some opiates, and then half hour later he can get up. And he comes to Mongolian every day, chants 16 rounds, does service, but he's on drugs every day.
Yeah.
But he's actually very fixed up. The devotee's pretty amazing.
Yeah, if you can control it. The thing about it is, Krishna consciousness gives you this transcendental pleasure, so you don't start edging over and taking a few more opiates, which can get you totally. I mean, he may be addicted, but if you can control it that way, you can maintain. But here's Kapila will say in a few verses And we can all experience that to some degree, how at least on a psychological level, emotional level, the pain, the suffering mitigates if you become really Krishna conscious. But he's also saying that you can even transcend the physical pain. Now we know Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj. Haridas Thakur was a historical figure, and they really tried to beat him. They beat him in all these marketplaces, and he didn't feel anything because he was totally in samadhi. And of course, Lord Chaitanya was taking the beatings on his back. He said, there's all this stuff going on. But it's one of the things of yoga is that you can transcend even physical pain and pleasure. You can't have one without the other. If you try to have the physical pleasure, the sensual pleasure, and get rid of the pain, it doesn't work that way. Because that brings you down into the modes. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's read one more verse. Tamimam te bhavakshami yamavocham puranage vishinam shrotu kamanam yogam sarvanga naipunam. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. Purport. The Lord does not manufacture a new system of yoga. Sometimes it is claimed that someone has become an incarnation of God and is expounding a new theological aspect of the absolute truth. But here we find that although Kapila Muni is the Lord himself and is capable of manufacturing a new doctrine for his mother, he nevertheless says, I shall just explain the ancient system which I once explained to the great sages, because they were also anxious to hear about it. When we have a super excellent process already present in the Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system to mislead the innocent public. At present, it has become a fashion to reject the standard system and present something bogus in the name of a newly invented process of yoga. Now, famously, Krishna says the same thing at the beginning of the 4th chapter. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham aviyam vivasvamanave pramanudikshvakave bravit. He says, I've already expounded this yoga system. Now, it's interesting that he begins that 4th chapter with the word, this yoga system. But he didn't talk about a yoga system at the end of the previous chapter. If you recall, the previous chapter, chapter 3, it was ending with this whole disquisition on lust and how it's our enemy, right? Your real enemy is your material desire, lust. And in order to conquer it, you have to steady the mind with your intelligence. Evam buddhes padam buddha samstap yapanam atmana jahi shatram mahabaho kamarupam darasanam. Understanding with your intelligence that you're transcendental to the intelligence, steady yourself and conquer this. So that's the hint of the yoga process that Krishna is now going to describe. In other words, that is yoga. Coming to the point of being able to control the lower senses and fix it on the Supreme. So Krishna is saying here, I already spoke this many times before. It's not something new, but it has become lost due to the force of time. That's the nature of the material world. The modes of nature gradually cover and distort and pollute and corrupt the purity and the potency of the yoga system. So Krishna has now come to reestablish, as he says, reestablish Dharma. And all the great acharyas do the same thing. Prabhupada didn't come to give something new. He came to give us this ancient system that's tried and proven and foolproof. And so we have to hear it and take it into our hearts and maintain the faith. Our whole practice of devotional service is based on faith in the Guru, faith in the Shastra. And when that is under threat due to whatever incident, then we should know this danger alarm should go off. Don't expose yourself to that, which will damage your faith. I mean, why did Lord Chaitanya say, anyone who just hears Mayavad is finished? By way of warning, don't hear it. Because they've developed a seemingly very logical and system by which to convince you that the ultimate reality is impersonal. And if you're not really experienced in the counter arguments and all those things, then you can be affected by that. So we have to have the faith to to associate. The association is everything. Association comes through all kind of media. It's not just one-on-one. And through that media, your faith can be damaged and it can be destroyed, and your Krishna consciousness can be weakened. So we have, Prabhupada's books and perfect association. We should take it. And what is that? We sing every morning. We should know we're singing. Guru mukha padma bhaka chitete kodiyaka arno nakuriya monayasha. The words coming from the mouth of the Guru, which include the Shastra, make it one with your mind and don't desire anything else. To me, that's the most important instruction in that whole book, in that whole song. And if we just take that to heart, we can maintain and nourish the delicate creeper of our bhakti and the delicate creeper of our faith. Okay, we've come to 8:30. Any questions on these points? Don't forget text 15 tomorrow. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
I don't get distracted because I don't expose myself. Sometimes, I get this call from God Brother, West Virginia, not in Newtown here. And he went, how you holding up? Because he's reading on the internet all the attacks on the editors. How you holding up? Yeah, I'm holding up fine. I just don't go on. So the similar thing, you don't expose yourself to Mayavad philosophy. I like to tell you, before I joined, I actually bought the Sharirika Bhashya. That's Shankaracharya's commentary of the Dhamma Sutra in English translation. But I never read it. By that time I was. But if I had read that, I might have turned around and become a dyed-in-the-wool Mayavad, like many of my friends. So we should never think that we're so powerful that we can take on. Sometimes it's the duty of certain devotees to take on these things and counteract them. But we should be very careful because Maya is very skilled, and what she's always trying to weaken is our faith. Our faith because it's fantastical. Come on, the whole universe is emanating from a huge blue form of God. I mean, does that make any sense? It doesn't make any common sense. It's fantastical. And the whole spiritual world, it's all amazing. And to believe that day after day means you have to not, expose your consciousness to other things that would cause death. That our ancestor is actually a bacteria. The scientists can prove that. Not Brahma.
What's that?
Our ancestor. Oh. We all came up from a bacteria gradually to the West. Makes perfect sense. There's so much evidence for it. No, thank you.
There's a young boy yesterday. I was distributed on Boardwalk in Mission Beach. Super young boy on a hoverboard or some futuristic cart. I don't know. It was new. He just came up. No parents or anything. Probably like 7 years old, 8 years old. And he's just like, you don't know the form of God. Nobody knows the form of God. Because he was saying this book. He's like, what'd you say? Like, what'd you say? What'd you say? He was just like, no, nobody knows what God would say. And I was just like, how are you like speaking this this argument to me at the 7-year-old behind me? Where's your parents? Can we talk to them? They're Muslim. And
they train them up like that.
Yeah. Yes, you're chained by these crazy ideas.
one of the boys said, "Oh, I learned about this in school," and he was respectful, but he was just I think he was one of the family students. And he's like, "I learned about this book at school."
We learned to watch out for it.
Maybe watch out. Oh yeah. It was a perfection of yoga he was playing.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the story of Sharabha. If you read that story, you read Sharabha. Sharabha devotee. I don't know where he is right now. I haven't seen him throughout the afternoon.
He's
from
DC.
Huh? He's in DC now? So he was Serbian in the early 90s. He was